All right, what we've got here is a Kubota SVL90-2. It's got 2,800 hours on it, and it was in need of a valve cover gasket. And somebody had put a Chinese turbo on it and didn't have anything tight, so I had no boost and an oil leak. Any rate, first thing you got to do, I took off the 3 bolts that hold the radiator in so you can pull it back, and then there's a bracket on the left and a bracket on the right. You can leave those. I left this one on, but I took off the left one, take it out of the way, and that way I could pull the radiator back and to the left and lean it out, and it opened up more of an opening for this kind of side. Take this tank off out of the way, take the 2 bolts off that hold the air box, undo the hose clamp on the turbo on this tube. I just undid that hose clamp, and then you've got your I'm guessing that's the mass airflow sensor. Got to unplug that and then get that air box out of the way. Then I moved on to these brackets. I did the bolts up on the DPF up top. There's 1 bolt up there. It goes into a captive nut that's welded to the back side of this bracket, so you can just take that bolt out. You don't have to worry about losing any nut. On the left, mine had a nut and bolt. I apparently lost it, so I had to go to my cabinet and put a different nut and bolt in there. You can see it's a little extra long. So mine, that one I'm sure does not match what yours looks like, but there's a bolt up there. Of course, mine was a little long, had extra shank on it, so I had to put a couple washers. But anyway, take that one off. Then take the 2 side bolts out of this bracket and this bolt, and this piece should just come out of your way. You don't have to do anything with this sideways bolt here or this block. I didn't anyway. I left that alone. I took this bolt, and that bolt, and this moves out of the way. Don't mess with those rusted bolts there. This is not actually bolted to the DPF. It just kind of comes out of there. And then you'll work on, obviously get your wiring harness unplugged. Then you're gonna work on getting this next bracket off, which you can follow the bracket down. I think there's 2 bolts straight down, 2 bolts sideways. And then over here, there's a couple bolts sideways that go in. Finagle all that crap out of there. And then I don't think you could do the valve cover. I was doing the turbo as well, so I had to get the DPF out of the way, but I don't see how I could have done the valve cover without taking out the DPF. So you got to lift the cab, and on the front side of, like when you've lifted the cab, up there on that back wall, there's going to be 4 bolts. You can see that's the back side of one of them. So there's 4 17mm bolts that hold that DPF bracket, the filter. So I took those out. And then of course you got to take these 4 bolts, or nuts I should say, 4 nuts off of this mating surface there. And then that thing weighs a metric ton, probably 60 pounds. And I finagled, after the brackets are out of the way and everything. And then I finally got it out of there. I think I took the stem off. I want to say I might have, I don't remember at what point, but I did at one point. I think once I got the brackets off, I took that stem off of there, that fill tube stem. I took it off of there, and then I took the yellow cap and I screwed it directly down flush to the valve cover. It just got it out of my way. So then I could pull that DPF thing. I got it out of there. And then I got down to, I took off the top cover of the valve cover, the wiring for the fuel injectors has to be undone. Those are 10mm, and they are captive nuts. So I was afraid when I was undoing the first one that I was going to lose the nut, and I was really nervous. But the first one I did, I figured out, okay, they're captive, so they stay on the end of the wiring, so you don't have to worry about those nuts falling off. And then the fuel lines that go into the side, the 4 fuel lines that go into the side of the valve cover, I believe that's 17mm wrench. Got to undo those. And then I couldn't figure, I kept trying to lift and slide. I couldn't, because the injectors stand up I bet the injectors stand up a good 3 inches. So I ended up having to, you're going to see the EGR. There's an EGR pipe up front. I took it off. It's like 2 bolts on the right, 2 bolts on the left. I got that pipe out of the way. Then, what was the next thing? Oh, there's 2 little radiator hoses you can either drain some fluid out of your radiator, or what I did is I pulled the hoses, and while it was leaking, I had taken a bolt and cut the head off of like a 3-inch bolt, and I just shoved it in one hose and then shoved the other hose. So basically there's 2 hoses that go into the EGR. When I pulled them off the EGR, I just connected the 2 together with a bolt just to keep it from leaking. And then I took the EGR, unbolted it. It's 2 nuts and 2 bolts. Unbolted it, got it out of the way. I just kind of flopped it over to the left. It looks like a power valve off a 2-stroke dirt bike. So what it looks like underneath it. But anyway, got it out of the way. And then I had to crack the fuel lines loose from the rail over on the left, just the 2 front ones and the 2 back ones. And then I pulled them off one by one. I just hung them over to the side on some shit. I just hung them over there. And then I was able to get the valve cover lifted off and out of the way. You've actually got, once you do undo the wiring, how did that work? Oh, the top cover, the very top cover, when you do lift it off of there a little bit, it's got that plug that goes through the top. So there is a bolt going into the side of it, and you pull that bolt, and that plug will come out, and then I unplugged it and set that off to the side. So you'll figure that out. I mean, that's easy stuff. But really, then you're down to the valve cover, and it's pretty cut and dry once you get down to that. I mean, of course, that tube, that hose going across, that's got to come off. I mean, that's 5/16, nut driver, whatever, hose clamps. But now that I know how to do it, I wouldn't be afraid to tackle another one, because I'd know what to do. So if you need anything, just let me know.